Assalamu alaikum dear learners. I welcome you all here at Allama Iqbal Open University Studios. I hope you all are well and enjoying the weather as well. I read it somewhere that the one who stops learning gets old, either in 20 or 80, and the one who keeps on learning stays young. And I don't think any one of you wants to get old that early. The best part in your life is to keep your mind young. And here we are to keep your minds young. And the process is learning the language English. And the topic that we have selected for you all is verb. And to guide you all what verb actually is, we have our very own expert, Mr. Arshad Mahmood. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Arshad. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. What about you?
I'm okay. And you know what? Today I've got an assignment for you.
What is that?
Yesterday I found my niece, she was reading something. And that particular something was actually a definition of verb.
Right, what is that?
A word which affirms or predicates something of some person or thing. A part of speech expressing being, action, or the suffering of action. She just read it and it just flew on from the top of my mind. I could understand it. I want you to teach us all about this.
So you want to know what a verb is?
Yes.
Simply speaking, a verb is a word that shows us some action or some state.
What do we mean by action or the suffering of action?
When action takes place, it is done by some subject.
Someone.
And the object suffers that action.
Right.
For example, if I say, he eats an apple, so apple is taking the action and it is being done by he. So dear learners, welcome. Today it's a very interesting topic, that is verb. And verb is very important part of speech that can be called the backbone of a sentence. Sometimes you can make a sentence without any other parts of speech just by saying a verb. For example, come, or sit down, or get lost. These are all verbs and we can call them complete messages. So a verb is a word that tells something about a person or thing. The word verb comes from the Latin word verbum, that means a word. See, once again, English getting a lot from Latin. Verbum means word. It is the most important word in a sentence, and verbs are divided into two main classes, the main verbs and the helping verbs, which are also called auxiliary verbs.
I didn't hear this name before. Auxiliary verb.
Auxiliary. You know what is an auxiliary? If there is a big river and small streams coming and adding to the richness of water, they're called auxiliaries. So auxiliaries help construct big sentences in English or in all languages. In other words, auxiliaries help other main verbs. For example, I cannot say he writing. I must say he is writing. So is helping verb here.
Auxiliary verb is the other name given to helping verbs.
Yes, exactly. Helping verbs are further divided into two categories. They are primary auxiliary verbs and modals. Now, people often pronounce this word as modal. That is wrong. It should be modal. Because modal is M-O-D-E-L. That is modal. Modals. They're called modals because they show some sort of modality, how something is expressed. Right. The primary auxiliary verbs are to do, to be, and to have. These primary auxiliaries are very important to learn, and especially to be is called some sort of VIP verb in English because it may take about 8 forms. Usually a verb takes 3 to 5 forms. For example, if I say cut, 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 all of them 3, they make one form, cut, because there is no change. And the second form is cuts, and the third form is cutting. 3 forms. And then we have, for example, go, went, gone. Go, went, gone 3, and goes 4, going 5. But be has got 3 different shapes in present tense. Is, am, are. In the past, was and were. 5, be, including B6. And then we've got been and being, 8 forms in all.
Pretty long task.
Yes, the number of modals is bigger than the number of primary auxiliaries. The modals are will, would, may, might, can, could, must, have to, should, ought to. And we keep on using all these things, in our life. We cannot speak even Urdu language without using these modals. They're very important.
Sorry to interrupt you here. I would like you all learners to note down the examples that are being given by Mr. Arshad Mahmood. That is going to be very helpful for you. And you can try to make the similar examples for yourself.
That's good. So first of all, we'll discuss the main verbs. they can be discussed from different angles. We've got regular verbs, irregular verbs. Regular verbs are the verbs which take D or ED when we change them into the past form. For example, smile is a regular verb, play is a regular verb, and talk is a regular verb.
Change is a regular verb?
Change is a regular verb, but sink or drink or go, they are not regular verbs because these verbs can take any form, or sometimes they don't change the form at all. For example, cut, put, no change.
That's irregular.
Yes, these are irregular. So regular verbs take D or ED at the end.
The form is just changed by adding D and ED at the
D
end.
or ED. Then we've got the terms like transitive verbs and intransitive verb. Transitive verbs are the verbs which which must take an object.
It's transitive.
Transitive.
I used to call it transitive.
Transitive. Example, if I say I do, does it convey any meaning?
I do what? I mean, it's like
Yes, good. I do my homework. Okay, if I say she makes
she makes what?
cup of tea. So makes, do, construct, and there are many other verbs which are called transitive because they must take an object. If object is missing, then message is not clearly
The
conveyed.
sentence is incomplete.
Yes. Now if you compare transitive verbs with intransitive verbs, you will see that in intransitive verbs we don't need any object. For example, he smiles, she runs. In these verbs we don't need any object. Simply like we can have adverb. For example, he walks slowly. We cannot put an object after walks. These are called intransitive verbs which don't require an object. Now talking about regular verbs once again, these are the verbs which make their past and past participle by adding D or ED to the infinitive. Infinitive is a base form of the verb. For example, in going or goes, the base form or infinitive is go. Sometimes the final consonant has to be doubled. For example, stop changes into stopped. P is doubled. Same is the case with slip, where it becomes slipped, and then dub becomes dubbed. Irregular verbs are the ones which don't form their past forms by adding D or ED to the infinitives. They either don't change their shape or take 2 to 4 different forms. For example, if you look at the verb cut, cut, no change. So they're all considered one form. Same is the case with hit. Look at this again, its shape, no change. Put, no change. I came across one sentence, interesting sentence. Somebody had written the sentence, he hit the ball hard. So hit is wrong, it should be hit. And then if you ask people what is the past form of spin, they might say it is spinned or it is span, following the patterns of sing, sang, sung, spin, span, spun. That is wrong. So spin and stick and even swing, they take only one form in the past, that is spun, like spin, spun, spun, swing, swung, swung, and stick, stuck, stuck. And similarly, you've got the verbs which are go, went, and gone, and then shake, shook, shaken. If you look at shake, shook, shaken, this verb can take 5 different forms. Shake, shook, shaken, 3, shakes, and then shaking, 5 forms. In our grammar books, it is amazingly, it is wrongly mentioned that the verb sit has got the forms sat and sit. So they think past participle is sit. That is wrong. It should be I have sat, not I have sit. That is wrong. Sit is wrong. So the past form is sat. Interestingly, in American English, we see a positive change coming as the Americans have started changing some of their irregular verbs into regular ones. For example, if you look at the verb dream, in British English it is dreamt, and spell, it is spelled. But if you look at these verbs in American English, they are pronounced as dreamed. ED is being added to dream and spell. In the similar fashion, learn is irregular in British English, but it becomes regular in American English, that is learned, ED, but the Britishers say learned. And some of these verbs, they become complicated because they have been derived from nouns. Look at the word eye, nose. These are all nouns basically, but they can be used as as verbs. For example, eye, he is eyeing at me, or the enemy was eyeing at the border. So here eyeing at means watching, looking. Nose, if I say the dog is nosing the food, I hope you can guess. And hand, again, hand is a noun, but it can be used as a verb. Hand down this information to your boss, or hand it over to somebody. Snake, interesting, snake is some sort of poisonous reptile, but it can also be used as a verb. For example, I saw beautiful stream snaking through the village. Interesting, isn't it? So snake can also be used as a verb. So this is the difference between English and Urdu. English simply exploits same word for different purposes. So verb is very important in a sentence. We cannot make a sentence without a verb. Sometimes a verb functions alone. For example, he comes, he goes. But in most cases, a verb has to be helped by some auxiliary verbs. For example, I say he lives in this house, or I can also say he is living in this house. I can also say he has been living in this house since 1990. So have been living. What is happening in this sentence? Living is a main verb that is changing into ing form because of been, and been is there, it is the third form of we because of have. So have or has, he has been living. So this whole group is called verbal group. Now look at these verbs, how complicated they might appear. If I say the sentence, they stopped talking, and if I ask you to compare it with they stopped to talk, what's the difference? They stopped talking and they stopped to talk. Can you guess? Right. In the first sentence, when I say they stopped talking, it means they are no more on talking terms. And when I say they stop to talk, they physically stop. Why? To talk with each other. So that is how English can confuse you. Second interesting sentence, I saw him run. And if you compare this sentence with I saw him running, you will see in the first sentence, I saw him run, here the action was completed when you saw. For example, if I say I saw the thief run, it means he had simply run away. But if I say I saw the thief running and I caught him, here it shows that when you saw him, the action was going on. So the same verb giving you different ideas. I think, I am thinking. Strange. Think and thinking, same word being used in two different ways, two different shapes, and giving two different meanings. It shows that we cannot use all English verbs in ing form or simple form. There are different verbs which are very particular and we have to use them very carefully. For example, understand. I cannot use in ing form. I cannot say I am understanding what you are saying. I should say I understand what you are saying. Or if you want to use some ing form being forced by L1, Urdu language or mother tongue, then we can say I'm getting what you're saying. So understand will not take ing form. Similarly, the verbs like contain or remember, they can't be used in ing form.
Appropriate sentence should be I'm trying to understand.
I'm trying to understand, or I understand what you're saying. Both are appropriate, both are correct. So in English, we have to be very careful in using these verbs because we cannot treat them like Urdu verbs.
Right.
Urdu has got its own rules. English has got its own rules.
You didn't tell us that mathematical formula. Action plus tense gives us verb.
Yes. Simply, if you look at a sentence, the sentence is, he is writing a letter. So this sentence can broadly be broken up into two parts. He, subject part, and the rest is writing a letter, predicate. So predicate is something that tells us something about the subject. It contains its verb as well.
Right.
So he is sitting. So he is subject and is sitting is predicate. The birds are flying. Can you guess? The birds are flying. What is
Bird
subject?
is the subject and are flying is the predicate.
And predicate always takes the main verb.
Right.
Or verb and helping verb.
Here I understand what actually is given in this definition, the being, the suffering of an action.
Exactly. Being, suffering, or sometimes state. If I say the children are playing, here some action is going on. This is called play, can be called dynamic verb or action verb. But if you compare it with the child is naughty, here is not an action verb. This is the verb of state.
Helping verb.
No, it is being used as main verb. That is called verb of state.
Okay.
It is giving some state. He is a doctor. So again a verb of state. These are the main verbs. Shall we move to modals now?
Sure.
Modals, not models. Modals are
Modals.
can, could. They go in groups sometime. May and might. You've got must and have to, shall and should, or ought to, and used to, dare, need. These are very important because they are mainly used for three functions: ability, probability, obligation. So they can be divided for three different functions. So first of all, I would like to give some definition of these modal verbs. A modal verb or auxiliary verb is a verb which modifies another verb so that the modified verb has more intention in its expression. In essence, the modal verb expresses modality, the way in which something is being said. Modal verbs are common in most languages of Germanic origin, especially or including English. In our languages too, look at the verbs like karna chahiye, zarur karna chahiye, this sort of thing. They are modals. In English,
that was obligation form, no?
Should,
Zarur
obligation,
karna
yes,
chahiye.
yes. So we'll come to those functions. First, I said these modals are used for ability, which can be physical as well as mental. How physical? I can run very fast.
That's a physical ability.
And what is the past? I could run very fast, even faster when I was a child. Now this is physical. He can solve any question. So this is mental.
Capability.
When he was young, he could solve many equations at a time. Again, ability, mental one in the past. So but one thing you must keep in mind, dear learners, that these modals are very different from the main verbs because these modal verbs are called defective verbs because they don't take S form in the third person. For example, we say he goes, but we can't say he musts or he cans or he shoulds. These verbs don't take ing form.
Right.
We cannot say shoulding or musting or canning.
They are actually defective.
Yes, and they don't take the third form with ed. For example, we say go, went, gone, or play, played, played, but we cannot say should, shouldded.
Wented.
Went. Wented is like the main verb. That is, again, that is not possible, but these modals, they don't take ed or ed, d or ed. So we call them defective verbs too. Now coming to their use, why they're used and how they're used. First, ability, can, could, as we've discussed. Can is used for physical or mental ability in present, and in the past we use could. But interesting, if I say he could eat the whole cake, then he could have eaten the whole cake. There's difference in the meaning. Can you judge? He could eat the whole cake and he could have eaten the whole cake.
The first one, he could eat the whole cake, is an ability?
Both of them, like could, they show ability, but in the first sentence, he could eat the whole cake shows he in fact ate the whole cake. But in the second sentence, he could have eaten, he had the ability, he had the required appetite, but he did not eat the whole because he maybe kept for some share for his friend or for some other person. So he could
had
have
the chance, but he did not.
Yes, could have means something that did not take place.
Right.
For example, I could have broken the door, but I
did not.
So this is how these words change. So that is like physical ability. Now looking at possibility or probability, may and might.
Right.
If I say he may come, it means
there is
a chance that he can come. And he might come in the past, and we can also use in present and future. He might come tomorrow, but the possibility in might is lesser than the one in may. May and might. Then we've got
he might have come.
He might have come. That is like again in the past. He might have come in the past. Might can also be used for future. So this is this makes English a bit confusing.
When we say
because
might be possible.
Yes. About. And again, I would like to give, since you made the sentence, the difference between maybe. May and space and be. Maybe means we're using a modal verb, but when we use maybe together, it means perhaps.
Right.
Maybe he can come. Perhaps he can come.
See learners, these details are very important. I want you all to learn it properly and you can write it down for yourself.
Right. So we've discussed ability as well as probability. Now we'll discuss obligation. For obligation, we use the word should, ought to, must, have to. Should. If I say you should work hard, it means if you work hard, it is good. If you don't work hard, it is bad. And the same sense can be conveyed with the help of ought to. But the difference between should and ought to is that should is used with ought to and ought to must be used with to. Two sentences. You should work hard, you ought to work hard. They've got similar meanings. Now I'll give you strong obligation, must and have to. You must work hard. For example, you go to the zoo and you see a board there. The visitors must not give food to the animals. It means it is prohibited to throw food or give food to these animals because they might die. Food might be poisonous. So it is not your job to give the food to these animals. So must is strong obligation. If your father says you must work hard, he can also say you have to work hard. It means you don't have any other option but to work hard. But it becomes difficult, slightly difficult when you talk about the past form of must. Must is used in the past in two different senses. When we use must with have, for example, he must have come, it doesn't show any obligation. It is showing your deduction or your guess. For example, if I say, yesterday I went to his home, but the door was locked. And my friend says, he replies, I'm talking to my friend, I say, when I went to Ahmed's home, it was locked. And my friend says, he must have gone somewhere. So it is not strong obligation. It means it is a guess made by my friend. Similarly, if my sister says, my child kept on weeping the whole night, what will I reply? I'll say, he must have been sick or he must have been hungry. So must in present, it is obligation. In past, it becomes obligation when we change into have to, or in the past it is had to. It means must in present can be used. In past, we must use using have to, and the past form of have to, that is had to. So must in the past becomes had to. In the future, it will become will have to. Three sentences. You must work hard. You had to work hard, past. You will have to work hard, future. And should and ought to, they're clear, I believe. Now we'll discuss will and would. Will, everybody knows how to use will, but will becomes would when we talk about direct, indirect speech. For example, Johnson said, I will help you. When I change into indirect form, I would say Johnson said that he would help me. So some people think shall becomes should. That is also wrong. Shall also becomes would. He said, I shall go to Lahore. He said that he would go to Lahore. And would can also be used in the past, especially by the Americans. When he was a child, he would get up early in the morning, he would go to the garden, he would do this, he would do that. But the Britishers, they use used to instead of that. He used to get up early in the morning, he used to go to garden. So used to and would are used for some sort of habitual action in the past.
Right. The action that is repeated at a time period.
Yes, but that is no longer existing now. Look at the sentence, for example, I used to work for Mitchell's and Mitchell's company.
Mm-hmm.
Now
This
I don't
is an
work.
action. Okay.
No, I
I
don't
used
work.
to. I did it before, but now I'm not doing it.
Yes, and people often use used to in present sense wrongly. They say, I am used to go, or I am used to eat this food. That is wrong. When we use am, I am used to eating this food.
Right.
I am used to eating. I am used to living in this atmosphere. I am used to playing this game.
Isn't it correct? I'm used to of living in this atmosphere.
No.
I'm used to living this.
I'm used to living,
Right.
and I used to live past. I am used to living present.
Right.
So these are the auxiliaries that we have to, modal verbs we must use very carefully. Sometimes people use should and must together, or should and have to get together. For example, you must have to work hard. You must work hard, or you have to work hard. And I hope people have learned, and you have learned too.
I have learned a lot. Surely I'm learning a lot from Mr. Arshad, and I hope you all are enjoying it. Today you must have noticed that I was repeatedly saying that you guys must note it down for yourself. You know why? Because just watching or hearing is not enough. The process of learning is not completed until and unless you try to practice it. And you do have to practice if you do want to learn. So that is all from Allama Iqbal Open University Studios. I hope you guys enjoyed the topic of today, and I promise next time I'm going to bring another interesting topic. Take care of yourself. Allah Hafiz.